The Washington Wizards have pulled a full 180 the past month. For the first half of the season, it was nothing but pain and misery for Bradley Beal. It was free Beal till it's backwards. But now the pendulum is finally swinging the other way. They're 11-2 in their last 13 games and just came off an 8-game winning streak. So what exactly has changed? It would take an entirely separate video to break down the resurgence of Russell Westbrook and how he's juiced the Wizards' offense. But right now, I want to focus on specifically the Wizards' defense, which was a nightmare for Washington through the first leg of the season. After a loss to Boston on January 8th, Bradley Beal told reporters, "We can't guard a parked car." This wasn't an exaggeration either. Up until recently, Washington's defense ranked bottom 5 in the NBA, allowing nearly 118 points per 100 possessions. Here's where the change takes shape. After being a bottom 5 defense for most of the season, Washington has been a top 5 defense the past month, which lines up perfectly with their recent 11-2 stretch. A notable change during this span has been the minutes distribution at center. After losing Thomas Bryant early in the season to an ACL tear, Washington had their hands pretty much tied at the center position. For the next 2.5 months, their center rotation was a revolving door that included Robin Lopez, Alex Len, and Mo Wagner. Lopez is great for boxing out and is about the only guy you'll see consistently take and make these sweeping hooks. Alex Len was picking up whatever scraps he found at the rim, and Mo Wagner was a serviceable stretch 5. Among these three, there was very minimal rim protection offered. Teams were shooting 66% at the rim versus Washington during this time, among the bottom third of the league per cleaning the glass. So how has Washington transformed into one of the league's hottest teams in April? Before looking at a difference in style or personnel, it's important to note that Washington does have the easiest schedule in the final 6 weeks of the season, as noted by John Schumann in his schedule analysis in early March. So while some of their defensive improvements are exaggerated by their easy strength of schedule, there's still meaningful visible improvements from the first half of the season. As it turns out, the minimalistic trade deadline acquisition of Daniel Gafford has made a huge impact on the Wizards both offensively and defensively. His offensive skill set is pretty much limited to rim running for layups and dunks, but as we'll soon find out, that's really all you need as a center when Russell Westbrook is your point guard. Back in Chicago, Gafford wasn't being utilized in the pick and roll. This wasn't by poor design or scheme necessarily, it was just a product of Satoransky being the team's only consistent playmaker. Here, Gafford catches AD napping and makes a great dive to the middle, which goes unseen by Patrick Williams. But he's a rookie forward, he's not expected to have perfect vision all the time. Kobe White, on the other hand, routinely misses these simple laydowns like this. Instead of an easy dunk for Gafford, White opts to take Joel Embiid's kryptonite head on. Later that same quarter, Kobe White would miss Gafford on a wide open rim run. This play resulted in a Valentine-made 3, but this is still a wide open dunk. And although Zach LaVine is averaging a career high in assists, he's rarely looking for his partner in the pick and roll. Here he's got a chance to thread the needle between Quickly and Noel. The problem is he never even glances in that direction. This leads us to Gafford's transition to DC. In Chicago, he was more of an afterthought or decoy on offense. But Russell Westbrook is actively using Gafford to exploit overcommitted defenders and overextended weak side help. This first play is the exact same pass that Patrick Williams missed earlier. Westbrook was ready to take Poole baseline off the bounce, then found Gafford flash to the middle when Looney pre-rotated to cut off the baseline.
Looney coming over to help with Westbrook, so Gafford flashes and he...
Later, Westbrook drives down the middle, so Gafford flashes baseline instead. Same result, easy dunk. The very next trip down, Westbrook beats Golden State down the floor, leaving Kent Bazemore in no man's land between Gafford and Neto, and that's an easy lob. Westbrook makes these lobs and dish downs look simple, but it's just not a connection Gafford had with any of his guards back in Chicago. This last setup is one of my favorites. Westbrook knows he's giving the ball up after just one step inside the three-point line. He's already got Oubre cooked off the bounce, and with Draymond being one of the best help defenders in NBA history, Westbrook knew Gafford would be left alone on the block.
Westbrook to Gafford for the dunk, and Daniel Gafford's got 11.
These simple yet ultra-effective connections are a huge reason why Scott Brooks has Gafford playing the majority of his minutes alongside Westbrook. And for good reason, too. Washington is plus 10.3 points per 100 possessions with those two sharing the court. This last bit is focusing on Daniel Gafford's defense, specifically his ability to protect the rim. The most notable improvement defensively early on for Gafford is his lowered foul rate. In Chicago, he was in the 8th percentile in foul rate among bigs. He was often a step slow and wasn't vertical with his challenges. In Washington, his foul rate is in the 50th percentile among bigs, so already a huge improvement defensively in that aspect. Here's a couple of key defensive stops against the Pelicans. Here, he's able to slide his feet with Zion going left, allowing him to time his block perfectly vertical off 2 feet. And when it comes to contesting Zion at the rim, it's a job well done when you're not catapulted back into the stanchion. Later this game, Gafford would step into a downhill drive from Brandon Ingram. This block is all fine and glamorous, but take note of the verticality in his body and arms. Even without the block, Gafford's verticality here makes it absolutely impossible for Ingram to punch this one home. If you're like myself, then you probably want some more stats to back up the eye test here. And in which case, Daniel Gafford actually leads the entire NBA in block rate since being traded to Washington at 5.5% or 4.2 blocks per 36 minutes. The Wizards' defense as a whole is also plus 4 points per 100 possessions better with Gafford on the floor per cleaning the glass. Is Daniel Gafford going to be an all-star center? I certainly wouldn't bet on it, but I do think he's more than capable of anchoring an above-average level defense when he's healthy, which has also been an issue at times during his career. Defensively, Gafford provides an edge physically and athletically that Alex Len and Robin Lopez just don't have, and offensively, he always seems to be perfectly in sync with Russell Westbrook, who's been known to happily spoon-feed his bigs over the years. Daniel Gafford is a player I've wanted to talk about lately because typically nobody cares about what some backup center is doing on a borderline playoff team. But this is just another example of how a change in scenery and personnel can really benefit a player in all aspects. While Gafford's defensive strides are surely his own doing, especially given how Billy Donovan isn't exactly known for his defensive philosophies, it's also obvious that Russell Westbrook in particular unlocks a dimension to Gafford that was never going to be possible in Chicago. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've learned something about a player nobody talks about, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.